Peter Judge, Peter Judge, and I made you a judge. They make probably more money than you do.
They probably do.
Probably do. Peter Judd is our guest, city engineer of Vancouver, chief city engineer. The learning curve steep for you, because I know you've been involved in the city for a long time, and you've worked in sewers and you've worked in water.
I've worked in all those places, Fanny, but I can tell you that when you get the top job, you all of a sudden feel a lot more exposed than you have done, and that's really the difference. Is you have to make things happen, you have to drive things along, and you got to be on top of what's happening.
So how close do you work with city planners, like a Larry Beasley or a Ray Spaxman or
Brad Todder?
Yeah.
Very closely, and that's actually one of the great things about the city of Vancouver. I haven't worked in other cities, but I'm told that often it's very siloed. And in Vancouver, we work very closely together. So last week, we brought in a fellow to talk about urban design, and one of the things I noticed sitting in the back of the room was how the planners and the engineers and the parks people were, all kind of mixed up and sitting together and talking to each other. That's the kind of collaboration that really makes things different in Vancouver.
And if you have a green vision, and I know you do, and I know the mayor does, and your project is road work of sorts. So now somebody wants a bunch of asphalt. And what kind of asphalt, what grade of asphalt, who decides? How does that work? Because somebody told me we're grinding up shingles.
We're experimenting with that. It is true. I mean, you've got to experiment with things like that if you're going to move ahead. And we don't know how that's going to work out. But I mean, think of shingles. What are they made of? They're made of asphalt and sand. What is asphalt on the road made of? Well, gravel, sand, asphalt. So rather than sending shingles to the dump and buying new asphalt and new aggregate, try some of those. So we're doing some of that. We obviously use the old asphalt that we grind off the road. We're crushing up boulders.
So you're recycling all the time.
Recycling that thing, that kind of thing. And I think that's what's really important to experiment with to make a greener city. Try reusing and recycling applies to those kinds of things, and not just the bottles and so on that we put in the blue
reduce,
box.
Reuse, recycle, and rethink.
Right.
And there's a lot of rethinking being done. Should we have streetcars? We rethought well in the 60s when that freeway didn't go through. I think that was driven by Mike Harcourt.
It was.
Right?
It was. That was, a lot of things have happened in our history that have created the city that we have today and really positioned us well for the future. That was one of them. Now, not all of those things were purposeful. I mean, at that time, I don't think Mike Harcourt probably said, well, gosh, one day we're going to run out of oil and it would be better if we didn't have a freeway and, and we had a pedestrian-oriented city. But, that was one of the decisions, the happy decisions that was made at that time that led us to where we are. And we're very fortunate that we didn't go down that path.
Do you have anything to do as a city engineer with density or heights of buildings? What can be done where, that part?
To some extent, and where it comes in is, well, the changes that we've made in Vancouver. For example, people don't realize this, but jobs have increased in the last 15 years by 18,000. Population has gone up in the downtown by, I think, like nearly 30%. Automobile traffic has gone down by 10%. Pedestrian traffic has gone up by 50%. Cycling traffic's gone up by 180%.
Really? So more people living urban.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make, is that transportation is as much about land use as it is about the transportation infrastructure. So that's where we get involved in density, is sort of figuring out, well, with the planners, where could that density go, where it really benefits transportation in the future.
Sure. And if I'm a delivery person and I need to get around this city quickly, whether I can turn right or left has a big impact on gas, how much gas I use. If they decide to change something and my route is longer, then I use more gas, et cetera, et cetera. So what about trying to slow cars down, those traffic circles. I don't know how many you have in Vancouver, but I know we have some in West Van. And I'm thinking, why do we have a traffic circle in West Van? Like there's 4 people on the road. Huh? What's that about?
Well, traffic circles are good in
Europe.
A lot of ways. Well,
Okay.
Yeah, you see a lot of them in Europe in much bigger intersections, and they work. They work very well. The reason that we started using them in Vancouver and surrounding municipalities is you'd put them in a place where you might otherwise have a 4-way stop.
Okay,
And
so faster.
They function in much the same way, but you don't have to stop. So stopping and starting creates noise for the residents nearby. And the fact that you have that circle in the middle organizes the traffic around that intersection. But there are other really great benefits of them. So one is, yes, overall they slow down the traffic. 2, you'll notice that there are a lot of plantings in the traffic circles that we have.
Prettier, greener.
So it becomes a part of greening the environment. And anytime you can do that, you also make a better environment for cycling. You make a better environment for walking. And walking and cycling, as well as transit, are really the keys to future transportation in Vancouver.
Sure. You were chief engineer during the Olympics. Was that on your watch?
I wasn't the chief engineer. I headed up our Olympic office, so the things that we were doing to contribute to the Olympics.
Okay.
I was coordinating on
So
that.
crowds, anything with crowd control or that?
That in conjunction
thing?
with the police and our transportation folks, yes.
This Olympic Line streetcar, all of that.
Yes.
And Feb 12, wasn't it Feb 12 we started all of that?
I think so. We're
I
having
think so,
an
because we're
anniversary
having
on
an
February
anniversary, and
12th
they'll close
anyway,
Robson, they'll close Granville. And are you part of that as the engineering department? Do you put
We
the
are.
barriers up? And
We are. That was one of the great legacies, I think, of the Olympics. I mean, cast your mind back to the Stanley Cup riots way back. That really shaped our thinking around what we could do with special events and crowds and policing, and it really made us quite risk averse for a long time.
yeah.
One of the things we learned from the Olympics was how to manage those crowds, and that we could do those things, that we could do them safely.
Sure.
We can partner with our business improvement association, so that, like the Downtown BIA, which we're partnering with on February 12th.
Really?
And also, I think one of the great legacies of the Games was how the Vancouver police managed and reacted. I think in some ways they surprised themselves and really showed the world how you can police those kinds of events respectfully.
Yes, you don't pen people up. You let people have fun, and people will pay attention. And if the police get it, we can all work together.
We can.
In this happy little world. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fanny.
Nice to meet
Thanks for having me
you.
on.
Peter Judd. He is the chief engineer of the City of Vancouver.